Hello and welcome to WordCamp Santa Clarita 2021. My name is Mike Pilley and I'm the Bakersfield, California WordPress meetup organizer and your MC for this session. This is the 9 a.m. talk with Carol Stambaugh at the Revolution track. Please feel free to add your questions to the YouTube chat feed and we'll answer those at the end. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Carol Stambaugh, a seasoned professional with over 10 years of experience working with WordPress. Carol has tenaciously embraced the technology sector. Carol is active in the Arizona WordPress community, leading the Tempe meetup, and has organized over a half dozen WordCamps. Carol loves WordPress, the community, and helping clients solve their problems through technology. She loves a good Asana template with video tutorials so that anyone on the team can perform critical tasks when needed. This session is titled Lessons from 100 Plus Site Audits, a peek into the most common mistakes.
Hello, my name is Carol Stambaugh, and I'm so happy to be here with you for WordCamp Santa Clarita. I'm going to be presenting lessons from 100 plus site audits, a peek at some of the most common mistakes. So, my name is Carol Stambaugh, and I am a social worker and I am a former nonprofit association executive. I come from the world of completely different from technology. I come from an area of social work and working with nonprofits. And I, about 10 years ago, left that world, started my own business, fell in love with WordPress, and have been working in the WordPress world now for 10 years. And I own my own agency. I have a co-owner, Jeremy Saxey. Together, we run a WordPress maintenance and support agency called Radiate WP. And we do the ongoing maintenance and support of WordPress websites. And I love WordPress. I love the WordPress community. I'm involved with the WordPress community. I've been on several different WordCamp organizing teams, WordCamp Phoenix organizing teams, and am the leader of the Arizona WordPress meetup group. So I love WordPress. I love the community. And I'm so happy to be speaking with you today. So before we get into our discussion, I want to talk to you about and share with you the resource page. So anytime I do a presentation like this, I always like to have a resource page so that you don't have to worry about taking notes. All of this stuff is completely written down for you. You've got all the links. You don't have to worry about capturing any of the information. It's all right there for you. So here is the information you need. You just need to go to radiatewp.com/WordCamp-Santa-Clarita. And so if you want to take a look at that page, this is what that page looks like. So as you can see here, I actually have the slide deck right here. So you can see the slide deck. I even have my speaker notes. So if you want to get a peek under the hood, these are all of my speaker notes and you can download my speaker notes. The site audit is how I have gathered all the information that I'm going to speak to you and present to you today. If you want a quick site audit that we offer, you are able to get one of these on our website. You can sign up right here on this link for a free site audit. And then each of the sections that we're going to talk about here has a different section with links. So you can keep this open and follow along, or you can shut it and then come back to it later. But feel free to use this resource page throughout and after the session today. So how do I know what are the most common website mistakes that people make? The reason is site audits. We do site audits and we do a lot of site audits. So as of the taping of this particular session right here, we have done, our agency has done, and this is just in the past 2 years, up until the taping of this, 115 site audits and have made 1,765 recommendations on those audits. Now, by the time you watch this, that will be completely out of date because I just counted this morning and we currently have 11 additional site audits in process. So by the time you see this, that number is going to be completely out of date, and we're going to have even more. But this is how I know the sites that we get, we can see what are the common mistakes that people are making. And so I began gathering that data, and I wanted to see, well, what is the most common mistake? So we have hard data, and I will give you a sneak peek at that data at the very end. So you can see all color coded and everything. I'll give you a peek at where the range is and what that data looks like, and how people are scoring and ranking on different areas. So just give you some fun facts. Again, we've done 115 site audits in the past 2 years. We have 1,765 recommendations. On those sites, there were 390 premium plugins, not regular plugins, premium plugins. There were 36 deactivated themes, not active, deactivated themes, and there were 220 deactivated plugins. Kind of some fun stuff there, right? So what's included in our audit? Now, our audit looks at all of these things. It looks at UX, user experience, accessibility, performance and security, content form and the copy, spelling errors type stuff, legal requirements, conversion optimization, SEO, online visibility, and then we also do a little bit of technical WordPress assistance. So have you ever had a website audit? I'm hoping with this format that we're going to be able to do a quick poll. So I'm going to pause here and give you a little chance to answer a poll. If not, we'll hopefully skip forward in this recording and go on. But I am curious to know how many people have actually done a website audit, maybe even conducted your own website audit of other sites, or have had your site go through a website audit. The first section we're going to talk about today is accessibility. And I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about why this is important. I think that there's a lot of people who understand why this is important, but there's some people who are still not quite so sure. And I actually have to say that I think that there's an awakening happening, and that there's a little bit of a new understanding about why this is so important. And I can even tell a story and speak to why and how that's happened for me as well. So the first thing I think is important to realize is this is really a civil rights issue, and it's the right thing to do. We just came out of a really tough year with the pandemic, and this was not the year to have a website where you were trying to maybe sign up to get your groceries delivered because you didn't want to go to the grocery store in the middle of a pandemic. And maybe you had some kind of disability that you were not able to check out on the cart well, or you were not able to tab through to be able to check out using your keyboard. Or maybe you were not able to find through the navigation the place to get a COVID test or a COVID vaccination because those sites were not accessible. We hunkered down. We all went online, and we all were stuck online. And it really illuminated the need to make these spaces as accessible as those stairs that go up to the building. We've known for a long time that it's really important for those stairs that go up to the building to be also have a ramp for wheelchair users. And we accept that. And that's something that we accept as just That's the way life should be now. We understand that. And I think there's now an awakening and an understanding that our online spaces need to have the wheelchair ramps too. We need to have those spaces. And I think there's one of the things that has been really interesting for me is that I've seen I've become to appreciate accessibility in a new way when my son, he's now 13 years old, completely normal, crazy 13-year-old baseball playing, basketball playing kid. He was diagnosed with dyslexia when he was in fourth grade. And one of his accommodations being for dyslexia is that he can use screen readers. So when he goes to a website, there are times whenever he will use a screen reader. And there are some websites that don't do well with screen readers. And so here we have someone who you would not think by looking at him that he would access or use accessibility, but he does. And that's something that I'm learning and know now that I didn't realize. And that is the continuum of accessibility. Accessibility does not mean necessarily long-term accessibility. We may have short term. You may break your arm. You may break a wrist or sprain a wrist. When I was at home with my newborn, I was still working, but I would be holding and maybe breastfeeding and trying to work with a mouse one-handed. And so I might have been using my computer differently. So speaking to my computer was an accessibility issue. So that's a situational accessibility. So there's all these ways that people, the more we can make a website accessible to a person, it's a win for everyone. And so it's a win as a civil rights issue, and it's a win for business because you are just going to have that many more people doing what you want, which is coming to your site. Now, we have to also talk about, and we can't ignore the lawsuits because there are also now so many people and so many companies being sued. I don't have the most recent information, but I do have data that shows in just 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, the lawsuits went from 262 to 2,235 lawsuits for accessible websites. So that skyrocketed from 2016 to 2019. Of course, that doesn't include 2020 when everyone was trying to use the web. So it's clearly a thing that we all need to be doing. So that's the case for why it is so important. So what is the one most important thing we can do? Alt text images. Oh my goodness. Alt text images, please. Only 11.27% of the websites that we review had alt text images on their sites. That's like almost 90% didn't have it. That is so low. That right there, that's the lowest one. If you want to know what my stats are, that one right there is the worst. That was the one that is the most common mistake, is that people don't do the alt text. I remember I always thought, "Oh, I'll go back and add them later." No, you won't. You won't. Do it whenever you upload the image. I know you won't. I said the same thing and I didn't either. Make sure you go and you upload it now and make sure you add those alt texts now, because if you don't do it now, you won't do it. Take the time and do it now when you upload that image. So what does that mean? What do we do? So here, this is a picture of the back end of WordPress, and you can just see right there is the alt text, and you just add the alt text. And I have to say that The alt text, we're going to talk about it a little bit later in SEO as well, because it serves two purposes. If you have good alt text, it helps you in SEO and it helps you in accessibility. It gives you, it does double duty. So one thing you need to do is you need to be descriptive enough that you're inclusive and someone knows what you're talking about. But you also, if this has to do with a article that you're writing and you want your keyword in there for SEO, we'll talk more about that later. You want to sneak your keyword in there as well. So your alt text, it can be a little bit tricky because you want to describe what's going on right here. So I have described in this particular one, beautiful mountain lake. And this particular blog is about preparing images. So preparing an image of a beautiful mountain lake. And so you're just telling the person who's visiting the website who is not able to view it, they're listening to it. It's a screen reader, and they can then listen through the alt text as to what that image is about. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but it does double duty because Google then knows what that image is about as well. So again, you can see here, this picture right here is a dog. And here's my keyword. The very first word there is preparing images for website, because that was my keyword. But it's a beautiful white dog by Moraine, a mountain lake. It was Moraine Lake, actually, up in Lake Louise. But beautiful white dog by Mountain Lake. Okay, so someone knows, okay, well, it's a white dog laying by the lake. And so now they know what that's about. All right. There are so many more things to do for accessibility. When we look at accessibility in our site audits, we look at other things like tab through navigation. Can someone actually just go to their keyboard and can they just start tabbing through? Does the color contrast work? There's so many great tools that you can find. And some of these tools are listed right here and are on our resource website. The color contrast is huge. One of these tools, WebAIM right here, is great because you can actually see, it will tell you, oh, color contrast isn't good enough. Go more contrast. And it'll even suggest colors for you. Making sure that your form is it has all of the necessary tools and all of the necessary labels so that it is accessible. All of these things are really important accessibility issues. We don't have time to go in depth to any of those, but if any of you, if half of you will stop procrastinating and say, okay, I will go ahead and fill in the alt text right here whenever I upload this. If half of you will do this, this will be a win. Because honestly, if you will just start adding alt text, I would say that this will be a huge, huge win for me for getting one of the most common mistakes for people to begin fixing that most common mistake. The next really big section where people have a lot of misses on their website is the area of legal. Privacy is a big deal. For those of you who've been around a while, you remember what all was going on with GDPR and privacy policies 3 years ago. So here's the average score for legal was 34.02 out of 100. So out of all the sites we scored, the average was 34%. So that's definitely something that needs to be worked on. The legal sections that are needed on the website are these sections: the privacy policy, terms of service, possibly a disclaimer if you're doing any advertising, and then also your copyright. So those are the things that we look at. So if you've been around, you are probably familiar with how we got here. You know, the big internet companies have not always been responsible with our privacy. They haven't always been responsible with our data. And the European Union passed the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. It actually became enforceable of May of 2018, and that just turned everything upside down in the WordPress space. It turned everything upside down for WordPress, for everyone who was involved with WordPress. That was an exciting year. So once that happened, we kind of saw the writing in the wall that it happened there, but we knew it was going to start trickling over. And sure enough, similar laws started passing in the US. And the big parts of GDPR was that the person had the right to know what you were going to do with their data. If you were collecting their credit card, they had a right to know what you were going to do with it. If you were collecting their address, if you were collecting their social security number, I don't hope they have a right to know what you're doing. They have a right to know what you're going to do with that. Whatever you collect from them, they have a right to know what you're going to do with it and how you're going to use it. And they have a right to be forgotten. So if someone comes to your site and they maybe make a comment on your site, but 3 years later, they're like, I don't want to be associated with your site anymore. I want you to completely remove any comments I've ever made on your site. They have a right to ask for you to completely withdraw them from the site. So you have to be able to completely remove them, all their comments and everything from the site. And so that was GDPR, and that was what the beginning was. So now we've got these flood of new privacy laws that are being passed all across the country. So as of the most recent look, there were 6 governmental entities, including several states, Canada, and the EU, that have passed bills. And there are 26 states that have introduced laws. And I believe there's at least one more state that's looking like it's going to pass it. There is a issue tracker. If you go into my slide deck here, you can see the privacy policy tracker. And this right here will tell you all the different places and where these privacy policies are. So what does this mean? So, we're sitting here, we're in California. Well, California already has a law, so you do have to worry about it. But I'm sitting here in Arizona. Arizona hasn't passed these things, so I'm not going to worry about it, right? Or I'm in Washington State. They haven't passed anything, so I'm not going to worry about it, right? Wrong. Because I'm here and my website's here, doesn't have anything to do with it. It's where the visitor is. So if the visitor comes to your site, then you still have to follow where the visitor's state is. So if a visitor comes from California, I have to follow California's laws. So how in the world is it even possible to try and figure out all these different laws? So it's not going to be easy. And I have to give a huge, huge shout out to someone here in the community. So one option, first of all, is you can actually pay for an internet privacy attorney and have someone write up your privacy policies. And you can do that, and it's going to be expensive. But the challenge with that is it's going to go out of date, because when a new law is passed by another state may include some little something, and so your policy may have to be revised. So we have Donata. and Hans, who run Termageddon. They are active members here in our WordPress community who run this company called Termageddon. And Termageddon, they're really pretty amazing. You can go to Termageddon and you can get, basically, it's a policy generator where they will generate the policy based on your website. Now, let me tell you, this is not super simple, like I answer 3 questions and boom, I've got a policy. It's a little bit of work. Like, you really need to understand your website. You need to understand what kind of analytics and scripts you're running. You need to understand every piece of information that you're collecting on a client. You need to understand a lot of the technical details of your client. And when you go through the questionnaire is very user-friendly, and the way they have it set up is really nice, but it takes a little bit because you have to put some thinking into it. And they're going to ask certain things about your business. They're going to ask things like, who is the privacy contact person? They're going to ask things like, if your site is hacked, how are you going to handle it? Who is going to notify the people? How are you going to notify them? If you change your terms and your policies of your privacy policies, how are you going to notify them? Who's going to notify them? So some of these questions are business related questions that you actually have to make a decision as a business. And then some of these questions have to do with technical. So whenever you're putting together these privacy policies, it's not just checking a box. This is an integral part of how you do your business. And so I think it's really important that a substantial amount of time and importance and energy is paid to this so that you know what you're saying, and, and that you're prepared to follow what your policies say that you will do. But again, as I said before, my resource page has a link to Termageddon. You can check them out. They're a great resource. I'm sure that there are some other privacy policy generators out there. I have a high level of trust with Termageddon. You can check them out. The credentials that Donata brings as a privacy attorney are pretty impressive, and you should check her out. I also have a link to a WordCamp San Antonio talk where she talks about this herself. Highly recommend you checking that talk out as well if you're interested more in privacy. Our next section is about performance and security, about getting your website to perform. So why does page speed matter? So it matters to the users, and of course it matters to Google. It matters to Google for your search results. Remember, Google is in the business of making sure that the users get good search results, and advertising, but that's a different presentation. But they want their user to always come back for search, and so it's in their best interest that the user's happy, and the user's happy when pages load fast. And so they're going to give those fast loading pages preference. And so everyone is happy when a page loads fast, and everyone's kind of sad when a page loads slow and people get frustrated and they bounce and they leave. So we do not want, slow loading pages. So remember, whenever I said 11% was the worst score, I misspoke. This one was worse. It was 5%. 5% passed this section. However, page speed is a tough cookie to crack. I mean, this one is a really, really tough thing to score really high on. The Google page speed scores are really, really tough. And I think that I think it needs to be said that it's important to realize that page speed tests are just that. They are tests. And just like in the real world, a test is a very good measure, but not always 100% accurate of the measure of how something does. And I would say that page speed tests are the same. I'm not saying we shouldn't use them. By all means, they have amazing information. We absolutely use them. We use them to make improvements. We use them for optimization. We use them. But we also know that there are times whenever it's not 100% accurate. So yeah, page speed's tough. It's really hard. There's a lot of variables that contribute to how fast a page loads. You've got internet. I mean, I've been having internet issues in my neighborhood, so I've got page speed issues when my internet company is struggling. When I had my old router and I hadn't upgraded to my new mesh system, I was having issues. My hosting company, if you don't have a good hosting company, the hosting company and how they configure everything. Of course, you've got software versions and themes and how many themes and how many plugins, how many images are on the site. Have those images been optimized? How big are those images? Is the site super image heavy? Like, there's just so many variables. And that's what makes this particular thing so incredibly hard. So we're going to zoom through some really, really quick tips. Choose good hosting. It's really important for sites that are self-hosted to just choose good hosting. There's a lot of good hosting out there. Again, there's a lot of great hosts that will answer any questions about how they handle their caching and their speed. Talk with them about it. Limit your image size, resize and compress. I've got some tips and some tools on that resource page. Go check out the resource page for this information. Smush It or similar WordPress plugin tools. There's lots of different tools like Smush It. Take a look at them and use them. Limit embeds. Anytime you have an embed on your site, that really impacts it. And then also look at CDNs and Cloudflare, things like Cloudflare, because they really can help speed up a site. This last section is on the basics of SEO and getting traffic to your site. So we had better than some of the other scores, about 57.97% was the average score for SEO. But as many people who've ever tried to do SEO knows, SEO is hard. It takes a lot of time and work. Some of the work's technical. Some of it's not that technical. It's just time consuming. Some people worry about it. Some people are just like, I'm not going to worry about SEO. The people who find my site, I have my niche. I have my people. They find me, and I'm okay with that. However it is that you do, that's good. But there are some simple things that you can do to help with SEO. And I'm just going to go through some really quick tips here for SEO, and that is just choose your keyword and use it. My resource page has some information on some little tips for SEO. I love the tool that Neil Patel uses it's his tool, Ubersuggest. Super great tool. It helps with keyword research if you want to get into even any light SEO. It's a really great tool. And so choose a keyword and just use it. Even if you don't do the keyword research, even if you really don't even worry about what's the monthly volume, what's the search difficulty, even if you don't care about that, just look at your content and think about your English teacher in high school. When they made you think about a theme for your paper. What is this paper about? What's the theme? Stick to the theme. Find that theme for your page. Use that theme as your keyword and just help Google find your page. Even if you don't do keyword research, help Google find you. So find that keyword, use that keyword, put it into a program like Yoast. There's others. It's just what we're comfortable with. Next quick tip is keyword in their image alt attribute. Remember we were talking about that for accessibility? Accessibility, using that keyword in the alt attribute will help you with your accessibility, and it will also help you be found in Google. You get two goodies for one action. So use that keyword in the image alt attribute. It does make it a little challenging because whenever I did my alt attribute, I've got this dog, but then I also have preparing images for website. So I had to do preparing images for website hyphen beautiful white dog laying beside a mountain lake. And so it makes it a little more difficult, but you're helping Google find you. So just use that alt or use that keyword. Make sure you use it in your alt text. All right. Next tip is use that keyword in the title. Just make sure you put that title, use that keyword right there in your title. Next quick tip is put it in your meta description. And again, what you're seeing here is we use Yoast. And so this is how it looks inside of Yoast. So just put those keywords in the meta description. And you can see here, I've got preparing images for website, and you can see it right there in my meta description. For those who are not sure what a meta description is, it's what shows whenever you have a search results on a page right there in the red box. That's actually the meta description that you see on whenever I searched for blogging in Yoast, and that's actually the meta description that came up. So that's where that shows. And lastly, quick tip for SEO, use that keyword in the URL if you can. I mean, sometimes that's hard, but if you can, use it in the URL. All right, really, really quick information about Core Web Vitals. This is brand new. It's Google's newest release. So there are three aspects to it. There's something called, and it's all about page speed and user experience. So the page speed and user experience, it has three aspects: how fast the page loads, and it looks at how fast until you get to the largest content full of paint. So until you actually get something, till you actually see the page and you see stuff on the page. The second part of the Core Web Vital is how quickly can the user interact with it? So how quickly is, after it loads, how quickly can you click on it? Because it can load, but you'll be trying to do something, and there's a while before you can actually interact with it. So that's called the first input delay. So how quickly until you can actually interact. And the third one is what they call cumulative layout shift. And this has happened to me before, and it's really frustrating. You actually will have something load and you'll think it's done loading. And so you'll just be set and you'll start reading. And then all of a sudden it's finished loading and it will like shift up. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought it was done, but it shifts. And so those three things are the big things that they're looking at in Core Web Vitals. Here's some SEO resources. You can find those resources again on my speaker resource page. Here's the resource page, link right here. Definitely hit up your local meetups, your virtual meetups, other WordCamps. I think I wanted to offer our free site audit. There's a link to it on our resource page. If you want to hit up our free site audit tool, just click on there and you can run a quick site audit and see how your site's looking. It's not going to be as comprehensive as the ones that we do. It'll be a really quick one. And lastly, I do want to thank you for letting me speak with you. My name is Carol Stambaugh, and I run Radiate WP. This is my hedgehog. His name is Poe the Hedgehog. If you happen to be interested in Poe, he is on Instagram. at Poe the Hedgehog at Instagram on Instagram. Yeah, he's a pretty cute critter. So take a look at the resource page. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming to my session, and I hope to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Great talk.
Thank you.
So we did have one question that came in to the chat that talked about, I guess maybe there was some percentage that was mentioned about the alt images. So
Mhm.
I'm guessing maybe it was either completely correct or was it just, so maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So the tool that we have basically it's an automated test. And I mentioned this a little bit in my talk and actually someone mentioned it yesterday too, in that first session on automated testing. Automated testing is amazing. Like, it's really helpful for us, but we also always have to remember that automated tests are just that. They are automated tests. And so when we have an automated test that tell us something, what we need to remember that this is something that's like a red flag. And so when we have this and we see automated tests that tell us red flag, okay, this does not mean law. It does not mean absolute truth. It means red flag. Let's take a look and see. So I'm not going to say that absolutely every single image on every single page on that site did not have alt text. But with that automated test, it flagged enough that there was a red flag that whenever I see that come back on the site, I'm going to say to this new client, because we run these site audits on new clients that are coming into our service. And then I'm going to say, danger, we need to, danger, Will Robinson. We can say that now because the newest version of Lost in Space is out. People understand it. Danger, we have a flag come up about your alt images. Let's look and let's see. And so we're now able to go in there. So a lot of these scores that you see, you kind of have to realize that, okay, yes, they're scores and they're very interesting, but we also have to understand that these are tests.
Yeah, I would agree, especially as somebody who also enjoys data and, doing analysis. If you're looking at it as a whole and you see that maybe all of those sites are still not really in the more, green, let's say, then yeah, I think that's probably a good indication that that's an area that probably needs some attention.
Right. Yeah,
And so,
it's definitely, it's a tool. It's a tool. And that's one of the things that I think tests should be used as. Tests should be a tool. They should not be the end all be all. It should be a tool to get better.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And so to segue into the, talking about in the green, so you had mentioned that you have the stats available. It looks like at the end of the slide deck where it kind of breaks down some of those areas. And so people can kind of see maybe where there does need to be a little bit more attention to their websites.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. We started about a year and a half ago. We've been doing these site audits now for about two and a half years. And as we just kept on getting all of this data, about a year and a half ago, I thought to myself and then mentioned to my business partner, this is really valuable information. I mean, how can we continue to do all of these site audits and not track this? Like, we're missing an opportunity here. So we didn't go all the way back to the beginning. We went back to the beginning of 2000 is as far as we went back. So we went back to the beginning. I hired a virtual assistant who actually went backwards to then, and we did all the research. And now that we got caught up, we now have a process in place. And so every single new site audit, we now have a process where we're collecting data. So we're able to keep that data going forward. But it was just too much good information to not have.
Right, right. And that's funny. That was going to lead me to my next question to you. So how does that process kind of work? If you have a few minutes to tell us about that.
Sure. So, well, we have we do ongoing maintenance and support, but ongoing maintenance and support. There's just pushing a button to update plugins and to keep things updated and fix things when they break. But there's also a little bit layer above that, which is to making sure that the site's really good and performing well. And so that's what we want to do, is the layer above that. And so that's why when we bring a new site onto our service, we do this site audit. And then and this site audit, we have 4 different staff members who take different parts of the site audit. Some of those tests that you see, some of those audit points, and if you go to the very bottom of the web page, you can see the screenshots of my my Excel spreadsheet, or it's a Google spreadsheet, and you can actually see every single audit point. Some of those audit points are automated. Some of them are actually a manual audit that someone looks at. They're a person that does it. And so I'd say about half and half. They're half manual, half person. And so we actually have 4 different team members who are in the audit and looking at different things. So it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for us to complete an audit. And once all of our team members look at that audit, we have our final, she's in charge of our site audit and QA process. She actually will record about a 30-minute explainer video, and she will record her screen and go through and explain everything in the audit. And so our clients get a 30-minute explainer video and a comprehensive PDF report that they can go through. And then part of our process, whenever we're doing the maintenance of the site throughout the next year, is that we're trying to improve that site. And then, of course, we do those site audits annually for our clients who are on the middle and higher packages, because sites change and technology changes. And last year, no one even knew what Core Web Vitals were. This year, Core Web Vitals is something that we know about now, and so we've got to look at that. And so things are always changing. So a new audit this year looks different than one last year. So that's a little bit about how our process works.
That's neat. That was really cool. The document there at the end, the one that was, kind of looked like it was the summary. It looked very visually, easy, I think, for somebody, to understand if they're, not into the minutia, details, I guess.
Our report is our report can be long, because the report gives every single audit point, and it gives a grade. It gives a pass and a fail grade. And, but what's nice about the report is at the very top of the report, it gives a to-do list. So you don't have to go all the way through the report. The very top of the report, it's like, here's your punch list. If you want to go through and make your improvements, here's your bulleted list of, here are your to-do items. But then if you really want to learn all the things that we looked at and all of the details, you can read the rest of the 50-page report.
Nice. Very nice. So I don't see, let's see, I don't know if we have any other, it looks like maybe that might be it for us as far as questions and time. So thank you so much for your presentation. Thanks to everybody for joining in on this session, and we'll continue on the Slack channel, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.